Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to do a trailer breakdown for the new movie Dolittle, which is set to hit theaters in January of next year, starring Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Dolittle. Now, for a lot of people that either don't remember or maybe forget, there was a original Doctor Dolittle film that was in 1967, and then there was a remake and a series of sequels to that remake done in I believe it was the late 90s, by Eddie Murphy. And those were a bit more grounded. This and the original film seem to be more connected with the Doctor Dolittle from the actual Dolittle novels, which were published in the early to mid 1920s. And basically, it's a different aesthetic than I think what people are used to in terms of being more familiar, because a lot of people I know are really more familiar with the Eddie Murphy version, and then you kind of show them the 67 version, they really don't know what to make of it. I think it'll be kind of the same thing with this. Anybody that's really attached to that version is probably not going to take to this one, but anybody who's kind of interested in the source material or maybe the 67 film would probably be attracted to this a bit. But one thing they did take actually from the Eddie Murphy films was they have the CGI animal speech, so the animals actually look like they're talking as opposed to just beaming their thoughts into his head like what they had to do back in the 60s. But anyway, we start this trailer out and we go through kind of this little montage where it looks like there's two kids, a boy and a girl, and they both meet Dr. Dolittle for whatever reason, who's basically a doctor who can talk to animals, and they state that in the trailer as well. At one point, that oh, you can talk to animals, and then, he sticks his head in Robert Downey Jr. sticks his head in a fish tank and talks to a little octopus thing. But that's basically what it is they're going on some kind of a voyage or a journey. You see that they go from what is presumably Doolittle's house that he leaves, and they go to a ship and they're sailing across the sea, and then they're on this little like desert island with a I don't know if it's a coliseum or something, but like Robert Downey Jr. has to fight a tiger. But they kind of go through the progression of like, okay, we kind of get the basic plot of the movie. We don't really know what the MacGuffin is. We don't know what the actual thing is that they're journeying for. They don't really state that in the trailer. And again, that's something you should probably keep under wraps for the most part. And then Robert Downey Jr. himself, there's really not a lot of dialogue in the actual trailer. Most of it is action overlaid by a song, and I can't remember the name of the actual song, but it's overlaid with a newer version of an old song, and really all you hear is I think there's one line from the kids, or no, two lines. Are you Dr. Dolittle? And then the other line about how you can talk to animals. The rest is done by Robert Downey Jr. And they show the scenes where he's actually speaking instead of doing an overlay, but I'm not sure what kind of accent he's trying to do here. At certain points, he seems to sound Irish or English. At certain points, he seems to sound French. So I'm not sure what accent he's trying to go with there, but it feels like he's kind of drifting in between a few. Again, I don't know if that's an element of the written stories. I haven't really read any of those books, but I've looked at the synopsis just so I can kind of compare and contrast in terms of source material versus certain other interpretations like Eddie Murphy's. But as we go through the trailer, again, he has a couple of little lines here. We see at one point that he has this whole gang of animals. It looks like a polar bear and a cockatoo, a parrot, like a bunch of these other animals that are basically kind of like his buddies. Oh, and a bunch of monkeys and stuff too. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like Ace Ventura 2, where he's in the room with all the animals. I feel like it kind of feels like that. Again, it has a bit more of a fantastical element to it. It doesn't feel like as kind of like, oh, this would happen in real world again, like the Eddie Murphy version. So, excuse me. So it's a bit closer to the source material in that sense, because it's kind of about this globe-trotting guy who can talk to animals, going on these voyages and stuff like that, kind of like scientific voyages to find these very rare animals. Again, that was a lot of what the synopsises of the original stories kind of dictate, basically. And obviously in the Eddie Murphy version, he's just a guy that finds out he has the ability to talk to animals, basically. And in this thing, it's kind of interesting that we do see as much of the settings and stuff as possible. I mean, the stuff at the end with the tiger is kind of funny, where he says "Hello, pretty," and then the tiger says, "Oh, hello, lunch," and they jumps at him and stuff like that. Those are kind of interesting. The back and forth with the animals could get interesting in the film. Again, Robert Downey Jr. is very good at portraying certain things like that, and definitely in coming up with lines and ad-libbing on the spot. So I suspect there'll be some of his stuff in there as well. But again, he's well versed at doing kind of that sort of stuff because of all the Marvel films. But it's interesting to kind of see this. The other thing that kind of has me weirdly interested in this is the release date. Now, I believe it's stated for January 17th of 2020. Normally, January is a cesspool month for films. You only see really bad horror films and Oscar bait really released in January. You don't see blockbuster films released in January, and this is a film starring Robert Downey Jr., who was just in Avengers Endgame, which is the highest grossing film of all time. So you're going to put out a movie with one of the lead actors of the highest grossing film of all time in close proximity to said film's release, and release it in January. That just seems extremely odd to me, unless it was some kind of an agreement that maybe they made with Marvel, like not to release anything with Robert Downey Jr. in the middle of the summer, even though they were going to kill off the character. But it's interesting to note that release date, because you don't see that very often at all. And again, this is a high-profile film with Robert Downey Jr. as the star, so it's very interesting to see, why this was chosen. And I don't know exactly. It could have been something behind the scenes. It could have been something contractual they had to do with Robert Downey Jr. or something like that. There could have been some kind of inside random reason for this that we're just not privy to. But the release date is just fishy to me, if that's like a studio choice on their own without forcing something into it. But you tell me what you think. As usual, I will link the trailer below in the description if you would like to watch it. Again, thank you for watching. I want to know what you think about Dolittle. Do you like the idea of kind of going back to the 67 films roots with kind of the original stories and stuff? Or are you kind of sad they're not doing a sequel to the Eddie Murphy versions or anything like that? Again, put your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?